want to be very clear. In the new economy we are building, Canada will no longer be defined by delay. We will be defined by delivery. Energy is power. Energy is Canada's superpower. It gives us an opportunity to build the strongest economy in the G7, guide the world in the right direction, and be strong when we show up at the negotiating table.
That's new Energy and Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson speaking before the Calgary Chamber of Commerce earlier, his first major public appearance since taking on his new role. Like Prime Minister Carney, Hodgson called energy Canada's superpower and vowed to speed up project approvals. Hodgson will be in Ottawa next week when Parliament will return for the first time since December. And the big question is whether minority Liberal government and the opposition can find some common ground. Conservative leader in the House of Commons, Andrew Scheer, spoke to CTV's Question Period and had this to say about that.
Well, we are going to give the Liberals an opportunity to bring forward their agendas, and then we'll make those decisions as we see it. When we see the legislative priority that they unveil, we'll scrutinize it. That's our job. Our job is not to rubber stamp things before they're even introduced in the House. Our job is to ruthlessly, on behalf of taxpayers and Canadians, go through everything line by line and then make a decision.
All right, let's bring in the front bench. Sabrina Grover was a federal Liberal candidate in the 2021 election. She's a senior advisor at Spark Advocacy and North Star Public Affairs. Melanie Paradis is the former communications director to Aaron O'Toole, now the president of Texture Communications, and former Ontario NDP MPP Gurritan Singh. He's now vice president at Crestview Strategy, also the brother of former federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. Thank you all so much for being with me. The House is back on Monday. Before that, the Liberals and the Conservative caucuses both meeting this weekend. I want to touch on both. Sabrina, let's start with you, because as we heard there from Tim Hodgson, this is all about a government that delivers. How do you get that tone across in this first Liberal caucus? Because for a long time, the old Liberal government was described by inertia.
So I actually think that the mandate letter that Prime Minister Carney put out this week is really the first example of moving towards that government that delivers model. I think, number one, it really, to me, the tone of the mandate letter and the fact that he only put out one, not 28, kind of shows a return back to maybe Jean Chrétien-style politics, where you're really going to put out just a few priorities and you're going to let your ministers and their departments and their staff take the lead. And I think that's what we saw today with Tim Hodgson's speech, which I was in the room for, by the way. It's exciting for Calgary to be featured on Power Play. And I think that, you know, the way that we see that mandate letter interact with these, I think, much more, I wouldn't say stable ministers, but I would say empowered ministers, at least at the first cut, shows that approach, return to business, a delivery model, and like, let's just get things done. And I think that Mark Carney has shown that in his speeches over the last several days. I think he's shown it in his actions, and I think there's no time to waste. This is a government that is going to use communications as a tool to accomplish things, not as a tool to just talk about priorities.
Melanie, part of getting things done is going to mean going through the Conservative caucus. Now, they've expressed some communication that they're willing to collaborate to a certain extent, but also Andrew Scheer was pretty clear there. This isn't going to be a green stamp on things. Is this going to be a spirit of more collaboration? Are we going to see an environment where moving legislation through quickly can actually happen, or are we coming back to the same sort of stalemate that we left in December?
Well, I think there are a couple things that are coming up pretty quickly that we should be looking for that certainly the Conservatives have been pushing for. And the first one is the cancellation of the carbon tax. So once the House is back next week, the Liberals have the opportunity to put legislation on notice. They won't be able to do that until, I think, after the speech from the throne. So we might start to see some of that legislation on Tuesday be put on notice so that can be introduced later in the week. I'm looking for the carbon tax bill. That it needs legislation in order to be removed, in order to be canceled. So that was a commitment that Carney made during the campaign, and if he's going to make good on it, that's something that certainly the Conservatives can get behind and support. He's going to have to introduce legislation in order to make that change. I think that the 7-point mandate letter. was also really interesting.
No, go
It's
ahead.
going to provide a lot of opportunities for the Conservatives to also keep pushing their ideas and their points across.
I take your point that they're going to be looking to see that kind of legislation, but he has effectively reduced it to zero. He doesn't necessarily need to introduce that legislation. And why run the risk of adding that to the plate when there are already so many promises that you're trying to get through in a very short session in the House of Commons?
Because it's the boogeyman otherwise. If they don't scrap it in legislation, it will always be there lurking in the background. And so they've got to get rid of it.
Gerritsen, to you, this is going to be somewhere where the NDP can hold the balance of power if they decide to. You know, is there an opportunity for more collaboration in this session of the House of Commons?
Well, let me start by saying, Colton, that you got some amazing coaching from Mike because the pronunciation is chef's kiss. So thank you for that. So the NDP is in an interesting position right now. Don Davies, as interim leader, he's a great individual to be at the helm right now. He's incredibly experienced. And yes, the NDP definitely have an ability right now to be that balance of power. I think what you've seen from the NDP is something that the Conservatives probably should take a lesson from right now is we just went through an election. There is a clear mandate right now, and the NDP will probably hopefully use their power to advance the agreements that they've already been able to either lay the foundation with during previous agreements with past Liberal administration. So we saw this with a big win for the NDP right away with the expansion of the dental care program to include folks at the older age bracket. So that's the kind of spirit I think we need Parliament to have right now, and I think that's what opposition parties should have as well. When I see the Conservatives and how they're reacting, it seems like they're having such a hard time not being so partisan. Given the fact that Canadians, I don't think really want that partisanship right now. There really is the spirit of like it's Team Canada and Team America, and Canadians need to be together. I think we're seeing that from other opposition parties. But when I see the Conservatives kind of grit their teeth and say they're going to try to support the government, but really you could tell deep down inside they're just dying to go back to the old ways. Is what I kind of see. And I think that's a problem. I think we need some unity right now. We need to give the Prime Minister the benefit of the doubt and push him on the priorities that are putting Canadians first, not on this partisan issues.
Gritted teeth or not, it is still action, and it is still collaborative action if it does end up coming. And so, Mel, I want to come back to you here and focus a little on the Conservative caucus, because one of the people that we are hearing is under threat is Jenny Byrne. And there has been a ton of reporting about the frustrations that exist and questions as to whether or not she can stay and go. That kind of us against the world mentality is absolutely something that she has had a large part of instilling in the party. If we are seeing this tonal shift, does it suggest that maybe some of this pushback we're hearing about against her, it has more to it than just rumor?
I think that's a big distraction from what the Conservatives need to be focused on right now, which is ensuring that we hold the Liberal government to account for their promises, including scrapping the carbon tax and making sure that that actually happens in legislation, but that we hold them to account. The Conservatives have a big job ahead of them. We're in a really important moment right now with the relationship with the United States. There's a lot of big projects that are going to be moving through, big legislation that's going to be introduced in order to enable them. And the Conservatives, as the opposition, need to be focused, laser focused on scrutinizing everything that's put forward by this government, not for the sake of scrutinizing it, but as Andrew Scheer said, because on behalf of taxpayers, that's the job of the opposition, is to go through line by line and make sure that what the government is putting forward is, in fact, in the best interest of Canadians and certainly the best deal for Canadians. So I think anything other than that is a distraction for this caucus.
Sabrina, I've got about 20 seconds here. Last word to you. Is that a distraction, or do they need to address the issue in the room, and that is leadership at the top after a fourth election that they've lost?
Oh, I think the Conservatives are going to be marred by distraction this session. If you've got Pierre Poilievre not in the House, you've got Andrew Scheer speaking for them. You've got 48 shadow ministers all competing for attention, because they lost an election and they were promised real cabinet, and now they have to deal with this shadow cabinet. And then at the same time, you have Conservative premiers like Danielle Smith continuing to be a thorn in the side, I think, of the Conservative Party. As much as she is a thorn in the side of the rest of the country, I think that in particular, the Conservatives are going to have to respond to her. And if Pierre is going to run for a seat here in Alberta, he's also going to have to respond to this idea of this national unity challenge that a Conservative premier continues to put up. When we saw Tim Hodgson today be quite open to negotiating about oil and gas and energy projects in the future in this province and in this country. So I think that it's going to be filled with distractions.
Set your watch Sunday. We'll see what he says.